And you can buy a safe from this company.
That'd be really weird. Really weird. Anyway, gents, two swigs and a cig. We're back. What podcast? We look differently. Have you guys noticed the difference? The little icons
Oh,
changed. The backgrounds changed. On the page changed.
I haven't had a look at that, but I can see your avatar, which is really cool.
My avatar. My avatar's terrible. Eventually, it will be me when I get things sorted. But yeah, it's been over a month since we did the last one of these. Did you know that? It's gone quick.
I know it's been a fair while,
It
a
has
real
been.
fair while.
That's been really gone quickly. Camel, how you doing? Welcome back, mate.
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
Absolutely no problem. And Cobra, welcome back, dude. Officially.
Thank you, brother. It's good to be back. I love our conversations. Let's do it again.
Cool, cool, cool. I thought it'd be quite relevant with everything that's going on. The title I wanted to do is basically what's the future of money, and it's quite an open conversation. And I'd like to know both of your views. A month and a half down the line, lots going on in the macro world, the economic world. Have your views changed? What are they? What's your understanding of money, and how do you see it in the future? Whoever wants to go first can go first.
Well, we'll let the financial expert Camel go first.
Financial
Oh, I'm
expert.
no expert. Always a student, never the master.
Absolutely.
I think if are we talking ultra long term or
As
medium long term?
wherever you want to take it, mate. Now you can talk about how you see money now, how you see it in the future, short term, long term.
I think now I see it towards the end of whatever this longer term cycle is. I think we are slowly but surely seeing these fiat currencies debased towards zero. I think it seems mathematically certain they will be debased towards zero if given enough time. Whether that's 5 years, 10 years, or maybe it can go on even beyond that is anybody's guess. But I think given the nature of the way we know they've got CBDCs and that coming, I think they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think they know they're going to have to go to some kind of digital system. I'm also noticing blockchains in various shapes and sizes are kind of being rolled out and ready to tokenize everything. I'm seeing the tokenization of everything being more and more of a narrative that's repeating of late. And it makes me think that probably from a user basis, it won't be too different because I don't know about you guys, but I hardly ever spend cash and it's not something I'm proud of, but it's just way more convenient than constantly withdrawing money out of an ATM only to spend it on fuel or whatever. And it's much easier to tap a debit card these days. So I don't think the user experience will be too different. Probably still going to be kind of mostly digital, but I do wonder. Yeah, I hope we can go to a gold-backed system. That's what I'm hoping for, but I guess time will tell.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I'd love it to go to a gold back system because it would just make gold so valuable in itself. But I agree. I think we are heading towards that electronic age. I think there's so much going on in the world with wars and inflation and interest rates lowering in the short term. Um, and I think, yeah, over time, I don't know how long, my view slightly changed about how long it will take before we lose the current currency or we mix it up with the digital thing coming in at the same time. Um, but definitely it'll happen in the end. And I think for the average person growing, as I say, I'm a bit older, CPM's a bit older. Um, for us, we probably won't see so much of it compared to our kids and their kids. But I think the system will smoothly go into that and it will just be accepted.
Yeah, for
Or
sure. Sorry, come on, go on.
or it won't be a smooth transition at all. It will be some nightmare situation where the internet gets switched off and everyone's left running around going, "What's happening?" And then all of a sudden we wake up with a new money. Now, I'm not saying that's a prediction or a call by any means, but I do think it's one possible outcome of about half a dozen or so.
I think that would cause so much chaos out there, bruv, in so many ways, not just financially, but in businesses, in computers running, in everything going on. I think that would be a bit too harsh. I don't think they can do it that way. It will be too much.
I think it is certainly a non-zero probability.
Mm.
And even if it's over a weekend, because we could probably survive a blackout or a internet outage for a weekend without too much panic and too much craziness. So I definitely think it's a non-zero probability. But again, it's not a prediction or a call. It's just one way they could do it, kind of pull the plug on the old system and then reboot it with a new one.
Yeah, yeah. Don't
So,
know.
so are we both of a relatively high percentage that we are definitely going to move into something else?
Yes.
Oh,
From
100%. But
okay,
I don't know what period of time that would be over. But yes,
okay. And do you both think that it's going to be digitally based?
yes. Well, I do.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay. So with that in mind, do you think that gold, silver, or Bitcoin has an equal chance of becoming part of that system, whether it's a backing mechanism or an actual new money, or do you think it would be none of those and something else maybe in the future?
For me, when I look at it, I think, as I say, I would love it to be gold,
Of
but I
course.
don't know if it can be because they've gone through that once, and it backfired because who controls that? I mean, America was holding the gold and then producing more money than it had in gold. Um, and that caused a load of problems. And in 1971, they had to scrap the gold backing. So, do we go down that same road again? Is it a way to do it, or is it more something in the digital way which stops them from overproducing the digital currency? I don't know. I don't know.
I reckon you're onto it there on the latter part, mate. I reckon we do go back to a gold standard, and I think that they get around the chicanery by using some kind of tokenized blockchain thing. I bet they have some kind of traceability with a blockchain, and that's probably how we can prevent the what do you call it rehypothecation.
Can you explain that a little bit better, Camel?
Well, you know how they write more paper IOUs for the gold than
Sure.
they have
Mm.
gold in the vaults.
Yeah.
If you have it on a blockchain system, similarly to how we can't rehypothecate Bitcoin, right? We can't have more Bitcoin created or paper IOUs. I know there's probably going to be some people that say, well, the ETFs, and if we get options on the ETFs, then maybe we can have paper. Right, sure. But if, because Bitcoin is on a blockchain, we can always see how many real Bitcoin there are, right? And we cannot create any more of those. So I think they could have some kind of variant where we have some kind of gold backed dollars and the dollars are on chain and you can't mess with them so much, or at least they have more traceability, more accountability, more verifiable ability.
Mm.
They're
How
more verifiable. I think that's probably what we're going to go towards.
so when you say that with gold backing it, how would they verify the gold that's backing it? Would they tokenize it somehow?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I guess to do it honestly, you'd probably have to have some kind of audit
Yeah.
and figure out how much gold everyone's got for real. Because at the moment, they operate on some weird system, don't they? Where they say, well, we've got this much gold, but you can't see it.
Hmm.
Just trust us.
Well, this is the thing. Even places like China, you have no idea what they're holding.
Yeah.
They buy in so much; they have their own minds and what they bring out. So you have no idea what any country's got. I don't think America would really blatantly say how much they're holding either. So and this is the thing: which country controls that? Then, does do we deal in so many different currencies, and each one says, "Well, I've got this much gold, and so therefore, in the digital currency, this is how much I can produce." What proves it? What stops the corruption in that? I don't know.
Yeah, it would be difficult. Like again, it would require some kind of audit and for everyone to be able to
And who does the
agree.
audit?
Wow. I don't know. Maybe it's not as simple as that.
No.
Or or maybe what they do is back it by something else. Like I know some people think Bitcoin might be a backing because then you could audit that for sure.
Yeah.
Anyone can audit that and no one can control it. or they could perhaps even make some kind of copy of Bitcoin that works as like a what do you call it, like a fiat currency, one that they control and that they can't create more of. Maybe that would be another way of doing it. I
This
do
is why I say
ultimately.
I doubt gold could be the backing currency anymore.
I still think they're probably going to try their best to have a gold backing again. I really do. I do think that's probably in the game plan. Whether it's a pure gold backing or whether it's like a basket of commodities or whether it's a combination of some digital, some Bitcoin, some gold, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure they are going to move towards that because there's no other way to pay for the debt unless they're just going to outright write the
Clear the
debt.
debt, clear the debt, and bring in a new system.
That's possible as well. But I think that leaves the issue with if you wipe the debt, then the creditors are left out of pocket, right? And I'm not convinced that's necessarily a viable way of doing it. But it's
Yeah,
it's,
but if
it's
they're
always possible.
compensated with a new digital currency to
That's true.
what the debt was,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? They're compensated in that way. So if they were owed £1 million or whatever, and they're given the new currency comes in, digital one, and they're given that equivalent, and the debt's cleared or whatever. I'm saying 1 million. It's a lot more than that, but you know, and start afresh.
Yep. And this is one of the reasons I think that the gold price is going to be way, 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 way higher than anyone thinks, because
Mm.
that's probably how they sort the debt is by revaluing the price of gold so far beyond where it is now that suddenly they can plug all the holes in the balance sheets.
So how do they go about doing that hypothetically?
Well, say right now they've got 10 times the amount of debt than they do gold.
Yeah.
If they 10x the gold price to 20K an ounce,
Mm-hmm.
now they've got a 1-to-1 ratio. They no longer have 10-to-1 debt to assets.
Mm-hmm. And would that depend
What would
on
that matter?
sorry,
Sorry.
no, go on.
What would that matter if they're not dealing in gold?
Well, that's what I mean. They would probably have to go back to some kind of gold standard.
Mm. But if you're bringing in a new digital currency, why wouldn't you make that currency equal or equivalent to the debt? Why does gold have to even play a part in it? I'm not saying it won't. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. Why would you
Well,
need to?
because if we created a new currency, for example, a digital dollar, that
Yeah.
doesn't fix the 35, is it 35 now? 35 odd trillion of debt the US has.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, think about it in personal terms. If, say, you've got 20 grand's worth of gold, right? And 200 grand's worth of debt for a mortgage. Well, you've obviously got a lot more debt on your mortgage in this situation than you do gold. But if you had the ability to revalue gold to 20,000 an ounce, well, suddenly you'd be in a pretty sweet spot, right?
Yeah, I get that. I understand that.
And it's all about the ratio of their assets to their liabilities, same as it is when any one of us goes to get a mortgage, for example. You have to have a certain amount of assets, and then you can only borrow a certain amount relative to how much assets and income you've got. So it's the same deal, but just scaled up to this huge kind of government level.
Mm.
And so at the moment, there's no way to service the debt because they've got 35 trillion and they are running huge deficits. Even if they put taxes up, that's never going to come close. Even if they, there's all these tricks they can normally pull, right? But they're never going to come close to making the 35 trillion. GDP would have to 10x, and even then, probably still not going to be able to get close to servicing 35 trillion because of the rate that it's growing at. But one way to plug that hole would be to buy a whole heap of gold and then 10x or 20x the price of it. And then all of a sudden you can say, wow, it's okay. We've got plenty of money. We've got plenty of capital.
I
We can,
see. So they'd be bulking up on their gold stores, which they probably are doing already. But they're
yeah,
also bulking up on Bitcoin.
they are, which
Why
tells
can't
you
Bitcoin be used in the same way?
it absolutely could for sure. And yeah, I mean, that's like the most bullish scenario for Bitcoin is that they are all quietly acquiring huge chunks of Bitcoin or as much as they can so that one day it can be repriced to the multiple millions per coin. And
Right.
if that's the case, then again, it makes paying off their debt a lot easier.
And where Bitcoin can't be produced, as in, not produced, my apologies, there's a certain amount, a finite amount of Bitcoin,
Yeah,
that would work better than gold, no?
it would. Yeah.
Mm.
And it would be easier to get the price higher than it would to move the gold
Yeah,
price higher.
yeah, makes sense.
Fascinating, fascinating. Who knows? Do you know when we talk about they owe 38 trillion, 35 trillion.
Yep.
Who do they owe it to?
Bonds.
Everyone.
Yeah. Anyone who buys bonds, the federal, so they sell the dollar abroad in bonds, and other countries take on the debt, and that would have to be settled.
Okay, and the countries that are taking on the debt, I mean, that's an awful lot of money, isn't it?
But for them, it's an investment because they get interest on it. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep, that's
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, they get interest on it. So it's, but then they're making money out of the debt. So they're basically loaning money to America by
Yeah,
taking on
that's
the
right.
bonds.
That's right. They loan the money by buying the bonds, and then they get a what's perceived as a risk-free return
Yeah.
because the idea is that the US is not going to go broke, or at least there's a very low probability of that, and that it's also not going to just out of the blue say, well, we're not paying you back for that. And yeah,
But
they get
countries are worried that they are getting into a bad situation now, right?
yeah, they are. They are. But all the countries all around the world are all bankrupt, which is it's kind of like it gets more and more confusing. The more you talk about it, the less sense it makes. But yeah, they're all bankrupt. They've all got too much debt. They all have sold too much debt via these bond instruments, and now they can't even service the interest on the
Yeah.
debt because you're supposed to service that by like GDP and tax, and you're supposed to, give the money out and tax it back. But
But they
now they're in
can't pull in enough money to do that.
not even close. No,
Yeah.
not even close.
So they can't return the loan and they can't pay off the interest. So that's why it's a spiraling debt. It just carries on and on and on and on.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that they also hold some of their own debt, which is like the weirdest concept ever. But but yeah, so they all kind of do that because they all hold some of their own bonds, so they can issue bonds and have the central bank buy them, or vice versa, and then they owe themselves this money. So it's just kind of constant rehypothecation. But that's also why I think they can't do this whole debt forgiveness because if China is holding whatever amount of bonds that they are of the US, and the US says no, we're doing debt forgiveness. Well, China will say, well, where's my money, right? And so will a bunch of other countries that are holding foreign debt, and then that's probably how you get this kind of war scenario play out. So I don't know if debt forgiveness can occur like that, which makes me think the gold thing is the most probable outcome because everyone has gold, everyone is increasing their exposure to gold, and if eventually they can reprice that way, way, way higher, then all of a sudden some of this debt issue goes away. Much the same as if you had a mortgage that you were struggling to service and you were paying for it with credit cards and your debt was spiraling out of the way, but you had a magic wand that you could wave and turn your stack of gold into 10 or 20 times the value of it, then all of a sudden you could just go down to your local bullion dealer, cash some of that in and sort of settle your debt, right? So that's kind of how I'm thinking it's going to play out.
Or we do have a major world war.
That's another way. Yeah. But I don't think that's in the playbook. And the reason I say this is the people right at the top, right? The richest people. Let's say you've got, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 billion plus. That's the kind of money that you can't really ever run out of. You can't ever spend it. Like you're permanently set for life as long as you just do the basics right. But there are one or two things that put your wealth in jeopardy if you're a multi billionaire. And one of those is war. The other one is like a cataclysm. So if a meteorite or a comet or whatever, I don't know the difference, but if one of those was to strike the planet, that's one way that you could have your wealth wiped out. And
But they instigate wars, they cause wars because it creates money.
yeah, small town wars. But if we're talking full scale world wars with, nuclear China and US at nuclear threat and nuclear war, then that's almost a certain way for them to lose a great deal of money. Because if you completely wipe out, say, Nvidia stops, being able to produce chips, then that has this huge knock-on effect to all of these different companies all around the world. And then these billionaires that are holding huge chunks of Microsoft and Apple and all these other companies, those in a world war, that's not bullish at all. So,
Unless they can influence not to go nuclear.
yeah, but small scale war is quite bullish because you can always print a bunch of money, say it's for war, and
Yeah.
then have half of it find its way into assets.
Yeah.
But a full scale world war where countries no longer doing trade with each other, where huge pockets of the industries are getting blown up and there's huge uncertainty. That's one of the only surefire ways for a multi billionaire to actually have a threat of going broke. So I don't think world war is likely because the people at the very top that are capable of instigating it are the most incentivized not to have it. But I
Right.
do believe they want to scare people into thinking it's a very real possibility. And to be fair, I can see the argument for that, because when you look around, tensions continue to rise
Yeah.
and people continue to fall out. And, I mean, you know how it is.
Mm. Well, we can see it going on in the Middle East majorly at the moment.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And NATO
CPM's
and
gone to
Russia's
sleep
always.
again.
What'd you say, mate?
I said CPM's gone to sleep again.
Yeah. You can see him nodding off now.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you, Stu. So,
Your avatar was nodding off there, mate.
I know. It's the old point of being an old boy. You need to make the conversation more interesting. I wouldn't nod off. Sorry.
Wow.
You're asking the questions. That's on you.
Guys, that's really interesting because wouldn't even like picking up on what you said there, Camel, smaller wars, you can just print more money, but then by the printing of more money, we all know it's a bit of an issue now anyway, or a big issue now. Isn't that just going to expand the problem of more money in the system and the original problem's not been sorted? So would a small war solve the issue?
No, because
all it's going to do is push more money into the system by
but
printing it.
Inflation makes debt cheaper to service because it debases the currency.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons I think we've had the inflation we have.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I'm a believer that the events of the last 4 years were somewhat deliberate and we were deliberately overreacting to it was because they needed to shut everything down to justify the printing. But they actually, in my opinion, needed the printing to help get closer to servicing the debt. I don't know if that necessarily even worked, but the more you print, the more you debase the currency, and the more you debase the currency, the cheaper it is to service. So again,
because inflation is a tax anyway, so
exactly,
it's a tax on us, so they get the money in that way.
Yeah, but it's also like, imagine if Cobra, you borrowed £100,000 from me, and so now you owe me 100 grand, but you have the control of the money printer. You could double the money supply, and then you'd still pay me back 100,000, say, but it'd only be worth 50, right?
Yeah.
It'd only buy 50 grand's worth of stuff
Yeah.
in the supermarket. So that's one of the reasons that they use inflation, is it keeps the debt more serviceable. So they can pay back the same number, but the value transferred is less.
Yeah, I get you.
So going forward then, what do you both think could happen or needs to happen over the next decade? Hypothetically. Probability from your own points of view.
The thing is, for me, I look at it in the next decade. It doesn't have to be major in the next decade for anything to happen. They'll just carry on kicking that bucket down the road for the moment. They'll keep printing. And I know that's not the solution, but what I'm trying to say is, yes, eventually, once everything is in place, like all the CBDCs are ready to go, then they'll do what they got to do. But otherwise, they can carry on like this for a while. It's not something which is imminent, I don't think. They've done it before and they'll carry on. I don't see why they wouldn't. It won't do us any good as a common man, but it's not something which is that imminent in my eyes.
For me, it is a bit more imminent. I absolutely agree that they have a history of just kicking this thing down the road, and it can always go on for way longer than you think. But the way that gold is breaking out to new highs relentlessly, to me, is the canary in the coal mine. Like, I don't think it does that for no rhyme or reason. I think it does that because people know it is closer than a lot of people might think. So,
But are people influencing the price?
what do you mean? What, like people
Well,
like us by buying it?
Yeah. I mean, are we buying that much that's influencing the price that much?
I
You're
doubt
saying, hey?
I doubt it's us lot. I think it's probably
Yeah.
central banks.
Yeah.
But again,
So
why now? Why now are the central banks buying it over the last couple of years? I think it's probably because it is probably going to happen this decade, I would think. I don't know. I mean, even if it happens early next decade, that's still within 10 years. So I don't think it's not necessarily going to happen next week or next year, but I do think it's probably going to happen within the next 10 years. And the CBDC thing, if you go in the white papers, they had all been built out. They're already ready, right?
Oh yeah.
They've got them ready to go, and they were mostly talking about getting them rolled out in 2025. I don't know if they're going to push that back by a couple of years, but 2025 was the expectation to see them actually come out. Now, whether we can get some presidents elected that say no to that stuff, or whether it comes in at all, all of that is speculation.
Well, Trump is one of them. Trump won't doesn't want it.
Well, that's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he said. The other thing is they have to make sure the people are ready. If they release it too early and the people aren't ready for it and they reject it, like what happened in Africa, you could down that whole system very quickly.
Oh
So
yeah.
they need to brainwash us for quite a little while, I think, to be totally accepting of it and then release it big time.
Yep.
I think if you shoot that gun too early, you're going to miss.
Yeah. Or create some kind of catastrophe that requires it to be rolled out is another way to do it.
Yeah. But how bad can that be? As in, do you want to destabilize the world that much to get this thing in quicker?
Well,
or do you want to do it gradually so there's not a massive disturbance to everything?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you could have some kind of attack on the banking system and get it done in a weekend. And I don't even think it would be that crazy because it would. I've seen other people talk about this. Like, Andy, do you know the guy's name? The Swiss banker.
Oh, Clive Thompson.
That's it.
Yeah.
Clive Thompson talks about it that
A lot.
it would look like it.
Yeah.
It would look something like this. On a Friday, you go home and everything's normal.
Yep.
And then it'd be on the news over the weekend or Monday morning that there's been an attack on the banking system and you're not going to be able to have your money for a little while, but stay tuned. They're working on it.
Yeah.
And then a few days later, whether it's a few days or a week, suddenly you will be able to have your bank back, but they're going to need to use a new system. They're going to need to be CBDCs. Any money you've got will be converted 1-to-1 so long as it's below a certain threshold. And most people might even get a sweetener, he suggests, right? Oh, well, sorry for the inconvenience, but don't worry, we're going to give you $2,000 in this CBDC. And most of the population will be quite happy with that.
Yeah.
And obviously, then we can speculate again forever on whether or not that would come with tyranny or whether it would be like an easier transition. Maybe it would just be a digital pound and nothing would really change in the user experience, and your debit card would still work and your banking app would still work. It would just be a CBDC. But I mean, we don't know the technology under the hood anyway. Well, most people don't, I don't think. So maybe it wouldn't be that bad, right?
Mm. Yeah, it's like you said, nowadays most people don't even use cash anyway.
Yep.
So the more we go along that route, and they've been trying to do that for a few years now, cashless society. They in India they've been pushing that as well. And so if they keep pushing that, and we get more and more, you see more and more shops now going, "Yeah, we don't accept cash, card only." They keep pushing that. It's not going to be a major catastrophe for anyone. And again, as the older generation dies out, it'll be easier.
Yep.
So are we pretty certain-ish, hypothetically, that a new digital form of transaction is going to come in down the line? We all call it a CBDC, denominated in whatever currency of the country you are. And two, the likelihood is it will probably have to be, is that the right word, backed by something, or does it have to be backed by something?
I don't know if it does. I don't know. I mean, it would be better if it was, I think, for us, because it stops the corruption in the government and for countries. But whether they will or not restrict themselves in that way, I don't know. Yes is the answer to the first part of that question.
Yeah.
That yes, we will go digital.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's backed or not, unsure.
Yeah.
I think we certainly will go digital as well. And I think for simple reasons that one, it's cheaper. Two, it's faster. Three, it's easier to manage. It's easier to audit for the banks, even if they're gonna continue to be corrupt and abuse it. It's still cheaper for them. It's more efficient to use the newer technologies. they are doing it right in front of our eyes, right? They are working towards these kind of things anyway. And so I think, yes, there's going to be a digital component, but there already kind of is, as we kind of spoke about. And is it backed by something? My base case is that it will be backed by gold, if not a basket of gold and some other things.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like that's to be determined, right?
Mm-hmm. And for that to happen, do we still see someone having a reserve currency of the world?
Well, that's the question now, isn't it? Because there's so many countries which are fighting against America as being the the main country with the dollar and all that lot, or the main currency used worldwide with the BRICS nations and all that lot. I don't think it's going to be that easy for them to hold on to that power, especially now that they lost that petrodollar. I think that was a major thing that saved them because that came in, I think, late 70s or early 80s after the gold backing was lost. And that's what kept the dollar high. But that's come to an end.
Yeah, do you see that, Camel? Do you see that there has to be a country that has to have the reserve currency in this new format? Or do you think there's even a slightest outside possibility that things can be more centrally, globally distributed?
I think there's a possibility. Like the whole New World Order thing,
Yeah,
Yeah,
one world government, one
yeah.
world taxation, one world money.
It's not been
That's
talked
that's
about.
that's that's one side of it, I think.
Mm.
But I also think that America probably is not in any hurry to give up world reserve status and
no,
the global superpower. They're probably going to fight tooth and nail to retain that. So then it's the question of can the US can the US pull that off, or can the
that's going to be a
globalists?
fight. That's going to be a fight, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of the other big countries are not going to want that to happen.
It's quite interesting because that whole global reset, um, is it the world WMF, is it? I can't remember what it's called. What's it called, Camel?
WEF.
WEF thing seems to have sort of worked its way out of conversation a bit across the internet. So it always makes me think, that's interesting. That's gone a bit quiet now. Or do you think it's just not a thing anymore? Or is it as quiet as it's quiet as gonna be?
I'm
I'm
not
very
sure.
sorry. I'm very sorry. I've got a text. I was just replying to it, and I lost that
Oh,
question
I
totally.
love the rawness of our chats.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was asking if what's happened to the WEF. It seems to have gone quiet,
What are you eating?
and I was quiet because I didn't even know. I don't even know the answer to that. And
Yeah,
it
I
does
don't either.
it
Yeah.
does seem to have gone quiet. I think Klaus stepped down.
You did.
I think. So is there something to that or not? I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting because it was all the talk, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
I know it's just gone quiet. Has that just gone away, or is that the boys' club doing something in the background?
calm before the storm, perhaps.
Exactly. It's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. Very interesting indeed. Okay, so where do we see? We mentioned gold. It was a good candidate for backing a currency. Bitcoin's got potential. Still believe that's a little bit early yet, but it seems to be liked by the higher ups. Silver, does silver play a part in this at all? Can it?
I'm very dubious on silver in this sort of role. I think because it's so industrial, it can't be used in that way. I do believe it's suppressed. I do believe it will carry on being suppressed. I also think in certain industries they are looking at different um, compounds to be used in place of silver as a great source of uh, as a great electric conductor. And if they come out with them, I think we discussed this once before a while ago, CPM. But if they come out with that, then that will reduce the price of silver majorly. I don't see silver as a first tier asset, so I don't think it can be used in that way.
To
Mm-hmm.
be honest, I kind of agree with you. I I do think it'll pump, and I do think it'll be higher just as a function of printing money. But like gold, I expect to go up a lot and then pretty much stay up a lot. Obviously, it will
Yeah,
pull back from its peak, but you know, in the prior bull runs, it runs and then it consolidates in a range and it stays there for a decade, and then it runs again and it consolidates in a range and stays there for a decade. Whereas silver just tends to like pump and dump. And I kind of
yeah.
expect it to pump and dump as well. And I would not at all be surprised if it could get to some silly numbers relative to today towards the end of the decade. If
I don't see it. You know, people talk about 300 $300 an ounce silver and all that. I don't see that, bruv, honestly, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, maybe 50, 60, something like that. But when you're talking in the hundreds, I don't see it. If you look back at 50 years of silver, I just don't see the gains being that much.
yeah, well, you might be right for sure. I could see it spending some time, and I'm talking no more than a week or two at $300. I could even, in an extreme scenario, see it hitting $500. But like I said, I think it will pump and dump. But I mean, if we go conservatively, I think we could see a high of $300 and then it maybe falls back and trades between, let's say, 50 and 60, which is about double where it is today.
Why would it hit that high of 300 then? What would make it hit that high of 300 and then drop
Honestly,
all the way down to 50, 60?
traders and speculators and hedge funds and institutions will just drive the price up to, just to make money on the trade. I don't necessarily think there'll be huge demand for it, but stocks can reach huge valuations without the company underlying ever making any revenue, right? they can make losses every year, and if people speculate on it and there's a load of hype or a narrative, that can drive the stock price into orbit. And the same is true of lots of things. So, price can for a short period of time not at all reflect the underlying value. So if gold is going to rip into a huge bull market like it is doing and like I'm expecting it to continue to do, I don't see why after, you know, by the time gold's at like 5K, let's say, if silver's still at $30, loads of traders are going to see that and be like, wow, gold's moved up. There's a huge trade opportunity here. And then the more it pumps, the more other traders and hedge funds and institutions will trade it. And so I do think we'll get a big pump and dump move. I really do. In fact, gold is due a weekly cycle sometime in the next number of weeks. And I think out of that cycle, we'll actually see silver break out towards 50 and above. I really do. I think that's probably on the cards for the end of this year out to perhaps Q1 of next year. I think we'll be above $50 at some point between, let's say, November and March. I think somewhere in there, we could well have a shot at being above $50, $60 silver. But again, I then expect it to fall basically back down to $25 to $30 and stay there for a while again. And then, eventually when the printer comes back, silver could probably have some huge speculative bubble. And again, I expect it to kind of dump thereafter. But if it ends up landing in a range of $30 to $50, that would be an improvement on its current range of 20 to 30, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not as optimistic as you are on that one. I'm really not, but I'll keep an eye out, and I'd love to see. Again, it would be great if it does, but I don't see it. I really,
Well,
really don't.
one thing that's interesting about silver is once it gets going, it can cover a lot of ground very quickly. So, unlike gold that has to kind of work really hard to slowly climb and climb and climb, silver can silver can go from here to $75 and back, all in the space of about 5 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So again, it doesn't really speak to that being the true reflection of the market price. It speaks more to a pump and dump scam almost that will be driven by institutions. But I'm pretty confident we will see it break $50 in the not too distant future. Again, though, like I keep saying, I don't think it stays there for very long.
That would be interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah, and if you can see it trade above $50, $60, then if you can find a seller for some of it, right? It's a nice little spot to offload at potentially.
Yeah.
Not financial advice, of course, but
Uh,
I'll be tempted to sell some of the silver I've got above $50, $60 if it can
I'd be
rip.
selling a lot of it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, something to keep an eye on anyway, something to be aware of.
Yeah, for sure.
CPM, would you be tempted to sell some silver if it had a quick pop towards the end of the year, towards 50 or $60?
Definitely.
He's gone to sleep again, bruv.
Definitely. It all depends on the structure of the market of what's happened. I think, for me personally, if it's just what you're saying, yeah, you can catch the trade, make some money out of it. It's all about timing, isn't it? More than anything, something I've learned, or beginning to learn more and more of. What am I transferring the fortunes of one? What am I going to transfer it into? And will it be of any advantageous, or will it be as an advantage to me, to then move that from one to the other? Because obviously you've got to look at capital gains and all that sort of thing.
Yep.
More than anything. Sorry, it's a bit of a boring answer, but it's the truth.
No, for me, I think I should probably say that if it does squeeze up to 50, $60, let's say end of the year or Q1 next year, there's always a chance that I dump a bunch of it there and it keeps going, right? But
Yeah.
I just don't think that's likely. For me, the risk would be to the downside from that level.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'd be more than happy to sell some silver and then either look at reallocating it again down in this kind of same range, or perhaps just moving away from that asset for a while.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely over time, I'm getting less and less physical silver and moving more towards trading silver via the futures markets or mining stocks.
Yeah.
Just because it gives you much more like flexibility with hopping in and out of the trades.
Yeah.
You know, I just have to click one button to sell it.
Yeah.
There's not that VAT that's payable on the trades. There's
Exactly.
not all the big spreads and stuff like that.
Mm.
But I mean, it's cheap enough to have quite a nice chunk and then, you know, see, right? Wait and see till the end of the decade.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
But I do think gold is going to do way better, to be honest. And I think gold's going to do way better at holding its levels.
Well, it's something I was talking to CPM about the other day.
Andy.
Andy, sorry, I have to remember that now. I'm going to start liquidating some of my silver and putting it into gold. I want to be holding more gold at the moment. And I think a lot of people, we're seeing it. I see it a lot. A lot of people now are doing the same sort of thing.
Yep.
They're getting rid of silver and going into gold more.
Yep. Yep. I think it just makes sense.
Mm.
And it's less volatile and it's more scarce.
For sure.
Yeah, it just seems like the better trade.
Mm-hmm. I've got an interesting question to ask you both.
Yeah.
With obviously I'm speculating, but it seems like it's probably going to happen. CBDCs, they come in, okay, through whatever way, shape, or form, or whatever is going to happen. Then, how do you see the ramps on and off for buying and selling gold? We'll talk about gold and potentially Bitcoin in the future. Do you think that's going to be as easy? If would you want to? I know we all get a bit carried away with, oh God, £10,000 an ounce gold and bits of, £1 million Bitcoin. But what do you see? The only thing probably is all you can do is transfer it into a CBDC, and none of us like the idea of CBDCs. So do you see that really, if we're holding gold and holding Bitcoin, if we see the value in both of those, it's just going to become a long-term investment of holding because there's not really much to transfer it into?
Well, look, I think at some point, whether you're doing it as a long-term holding or not, a long-term 10, 20, 30 years, you're still going to end up transferring it into the CBDC. So those people who want gold, if that's our new currency, they're going to have to trade into that new currency. So I don't see it. I personally don't see it as being any different. We may not like CBDCs. We're old school and we don't know exactly what it's going to entail. And so there's that fear there. But if the whole system changes into CBDCs, that's what we're trading in. To me, it's as simple as that. If that's what we're trading in, that's what we're trading in.
Yeah, I think the real question is, do the CBDCs have some kind of horrible restrictions on them, right? Because if they don't, then it makes no odds, makes no
Absolutely.
difference whatsoever. Just trading it for digital currency. And for all intents and purposes, that's what I do anyway. I trade it for the pound, but
Yeah,
I never hold physical pounds, right? So yeah, if it's not a CBDC or some kind of digital currency that is full of tyranny or price locking or expiry dates or you can only hold 2K at a time, uh, if it's not got those kind of levels of tyranny on it, then I don't think it makes any difference.
And
If it
again,
has, if it
sorry,
has, then I think that's where we go into two options: the like peer-to-peer black market kind of way, but then that's pretty rubbish to have to try to find somebody that's got something you need and be willing to swap gold. And you might have to chip bits off if it's 20K an ounce.
exactly.
um,
Yeah,
Bitcoin in that situation is way better because you
yeah.
could transact peer to peer and no one can stop it or censor it. And it's infinitely divisible, basically. So that's where Bitcoin would come into its own. I'd be tempted if that was the case to just make some nice jewelry and enjoy it. But hopefully we don't get the tyranny that comes with the CBDCs.
again, when we talk about that, I think it's fear. I mean, I know that, using a CBDC, they have the capabilities of doing these things, restricting it, putting a shelf life on it or whatever else. But I don't think realistically that's going to benefit them or mankind as it is. Do you know what I mean? It's just going to cause a lot of people to be pissed off. I think if there are uh, benefits, as in social benefits and all that lot, they could put a restriction on them so that people aren't taking benefits and sort of having major holidays and all that lot. But I don't think that if it's money you're earning in the CBDCs, they'll put restrictions on it like that. Now, I could be wrong. Don't get me wrong. Governments do things all the time that works against the people, but I don't think it's beneficial to make it too tyrannical in that way. So I don't see that. I think it will be a monetary system which will work very similar to ours, but will be totally digitalized. And then if it's stuff like benefits or government handouts, then those will be maybe restricted in some ways.
Yeah.
What you
Yeah,
can buy with them, what you can do with it, fair enough. But if it's your own money that you're earning, no.
I
yeah,
I can see that totally, 100%, because that's what we used to. Um, and we may never see this in our lifetime, but it's hypothetical talk. It might be my children's lifetime or my grandchildren's lifetime that they might see a different aspect. I've always thought at the back of my head that if I was wanting to control the economics of my country better, then if I could control the money better and how we spend our money better, then I think possibly I could imagine myself being able to control how the economics of my country would work. And that can open up such a massive can of worms, something we're not used to. Um, but I'm just looking at the darker side of it a little bit.
well, I think the darker side doesn't just come from fear, but it comes from those white papers.
Mm.
So you can pull up the digital pound or the digital euro or the digital one or whatever it is and read the white paper for the CBDCs. And I've showed this earlier on in my YouTube channel. I'm pretty sure if you type in Camel Finance CBDCs, you'd be able to pull them up. But I showed some of these white papers. I pulled them open and I searched for the keywords and I read chunks out of them for each one of these currencies. And it wasn't just an idea that they could possibly do this or that it was possible with the technology. They had deliberately and intentionally written in paragraphs into the white paper that pertained to things like product locking, which
Yeah,
is, you can't buy meat, you can only buy bugs,
yeah,
or the other way around if you prefer,
yeah,
um, whatever. And they also had expiry dates written into the white papers, so spend it or lose it. They also had things like negative interest rates, so you have to pay a monthly fee to keep your money with the bank, and all kinds of other kind of tyrannical type programmatic money was intentionally put into these white papers. So I think the fear is not unjustified. The fear is, it's not just something they could in theory do. The fear is that they wrote about it, so if they did it, it was right there all along. But I don't like to operate, number one, from that fear state, but number two, I think if we're all buying assets and hoping they're going to go up, but we are going to end up with a highly tyrannical CBDC system and we're not going to be able to cash it out or spend it, then what's the point in any of this?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I like to operate from a more optimistic approach that we'll figure it out or there'll be a workaround. And yeah, otherwise, like I said, this whole thing is just completely for nothing. We might as well just spend it now and go and enjoy it.
Exactly.
Well, look, I mean, there's other things. Look at the banks at the moment. They've already got written into contracts that we sign when we open a bank account and all that lot, and we don't even know about it. That if they were going bust, they could basically take all our money and hand us out shares in a useless bank which is already on its knees. And
Yeah.
they can do that. And no one really knows about that. So there are already things written into our systems at the moment which could really screw us over. But they're not going to do that straight away. They've backed themselves with that option, but to do that would cause chaos. So look, there are already things with our system now that are written into contracts and papers and all that lot that we don't even know about. So, you know, yes, I get it. The potential is there, but I think it's a potential, and I think it could be used, as I say, more with government funding of people than your actual earnings. Because I think if they did that on our actual earnings, we would be retaliating. We would be saying something about it. I'm not going to sit there and earn my money and work hard for it, and then you go, yeah, it runs out in a month.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
what the hell are you talking about?
But
Yeah.
surely it's a slowly but surely idea over time.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe the people behind that idea are just not going to get away with it.
Yeah.
Or maybe, like Cobra says, it's just one of those many things they put in there as a maybe we could do it in theory.
Yeah.
I mean, like Cobra said, there's lots of those. The idea that we own our houses is a bit of a weird one, right? If you own your house with no mortgage, the temptation is to say, well, it's my house. But it only takes one stamp on a bit of government paperwork.
Yeah.
Suddenly it's not your house anymore.
Because the land
Right?
it sits
Like,
on is not yours or some crap
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's true with all sorts of things that you perceive that you own, shares in a share account. Some people will say, "Well, I got the certificate. Okay, fine." But if that company collapses, you think you're getting your money back? No.
Yeah.
Like you said, the same with the banks. So
They need
yeah,
society to run harmoniously to get money out of us.
yeah,
If they do it tyrannically, then we revolt.
yeah,
It's as simple as that. So, yes, they've got the options to do things if they want to, but realistically, they don't want us to be fighting them. They want us to be handing our money over happily in taxes and all the rest of it.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not too worried about that.
but can we revolt when we haven't got, especially in this country, the force to be able to revolt with?
What happened recently with the riots? I'm not even talking, I mean, nothing major happened in the end because it only lasted a weekend.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about people's lives being affected consistently, you know, they've put in a rule that takes our money away totally. It'll be a lot worse than what we saw recently.
But no,
Yeah, you got nothing to lose at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the most dangerous type of man.
Yeah.
but
And if we then fight against the government, sorry, Andy,
Yeah.
if we then fight against the government in that way, the government can't survive it. They want us to be harmonious for them.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
So it's going to be a little bit more of a tactical behind the doors type setup that we need to be aware of.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You know what it reminds me of? I'm sure I've said this to you guys multiple times, but it definitely fits. You remember back in the C19 era?
Yeah.
Everyone was on, well, I say everyone. There was a spectrum with two extremes. And it was like, on the one hand, this is nothing. It'll be over in 2 or 3 weeks. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, whatever. And on the other extreme, it was, this is it. We're never going back. Everyone's going to die. This is the end of the world, right? And then
Sorry, what was C19? My apologies, bro. I don't know that
COVID.
abbreviation. Eh?
COVID.
Oh, COVID. Oh, sorry.
Seriously?
I didn't know the C19. I was like, well, what's that?
Flu season.
So anyway, yeah, there was this spectrum of two extremes, right? Like I said, there was on the one hand, it was 2 weeks, it'll be over, this is nothing, and on the other hand, it's going to wipe us all out, and you know we're not going to get through this, and life's never going to be the same, and we kind of ended up somewhere in the middle. Like it wasn't nothing, but now we're kind of back to normal. Some damage has been done for sure. I'm not trying to downplay that.
Yeah, yeah.
But generally speaking, it almost feels like a dream. Like it feels like it was a lot longer than just a few years ago.
This is why conspiracy theories are dangerous. You know, we can sit here and speculate on whatever they could do with CBDCs, right? But they have to have us thinking that we're happy. If we're not happy, they don't get productivity out of us. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
And our whole lives are made to learn from a young age to be what do they call it? Productive members of society.
Yep.
Now, you can't have a productive member of society who is deeply, deeply disenfranchised with what's going on with what the governments are doing. They are disenfranchised, don't get me wrong. People aren't happy, but it's like, oh, what can I do about it? Well, you start taking everything away from me, I'm going to do something about it.
Yep.
Okay, so one thing that springs to my mind there, it's the old hamster wheel adage, isn't it, that we've all been brought up with. Go out, work hard, pay your taxes. The taxes pay for everything else. So you have to educate me because I don't know this for sure. But what I was thinking while you were saying that, Cobra, was if you look at America, for example, that they do not, through that system that you're talking about, which is something we've all been used to for a long time, there's now not enough money being productive through that system to run the economy. Is that right, Camel?
There hasn't been for a long time, brother.
No.
They haven't been able to
So,
pay off their debt or the interest for ages.
so that system's breaking down already. They're letting it go because they should have done something about it, shouldn't they? If you're saying that they won't let that go, they need us being productive and working. Well, the figures aren't saying that now, are they? So it's
not that.
it's going away.
The amount they've been printing, and this is where the corruption comes into it. The amount they've been printing and over extending themselves is what's caused the problem. Not that we're not being productive enough. So yeah, they can take all our money and be servicing the debt. But when you get greedy and you start producing more than what you can sustain, that's where the problem comes in. That's why it's collapsing now.
Mm-hmm. So if they're not doing anything about that, will they worry about it going to any extreme that we're hypothetically maybe thinking about? Because don't seem to be doing much about that productivity now, other than printing money out of it.
No, but this is what we've seen with any fiat currency. It lasts a sort of cycle of about 100 years and then it collapses and then they start the next one.
Yeah.
And that's what will happen.
Yeah. So what's learnt from that? How severe to start the next one to get that going?
The stupidity is that we don't learn, bro.
Yeah, probably.
We just repeat.
We don't.
We just repeat.
Yeah,
what's learned?
exactly.
Nothing, mate.
Yeah. So would we, because we're not prepared to learn at our level, definitely, because we're in the hands of all the other bits and pieces, would that not mean that the majority, maybe not the way you think, Campbell thinks, or I think, but we're only three people, the majority will just go, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
That's the new system. Thank you very much. Off we go again.
that's exactly what it is.
And it doesn't matter what you think, I think, or Camel thinks.
Yep. That's what it will be.
Yeah.
And after another 50 to 100 years, we'll be in the same boat again.
There's your reset.
Yeah.
You know. Wow. Though, in that case, Camel might be right. We should all just go out and enjoy ourselves today.
Just carry on doing what you're doing, because that's what it is.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it seems to be a massive talking thing on the internet. A lot of people building their channels around some of this stuff, and I often sit there and I think, wow, you know, the deeper side of all of this becomes a little bit irrelevant to a degree.
Yeah.
We are in the hands of someone else, and you're right. Within the internet and social media, people are really sort of banging on with the fear over it all. But it isn't until you really talk it and really rip the bones out of it and dig into the weeds. The simple answer is none of us know. None of us know, really.
And the trouble is that it's the fear of the unknown, which is what makes us have these big discussions. Well, not us, but you know, where you're saying these channels, set up and start talking about it and the fear of this and the fear of that and all that lot. But look, you are not in control of that bit. What you are in control of is how you manage your money at the moment
Yeah.
to best take you through that change.
Yeah.
And for me, as you know, it's gold.
Yeah.
For Camel, it may be stocks or Bitcoin, and for yourself, it may be whatever. So we have to make a
Just
decision
whatever.
individually.
Just whatever. Camel.
Bitcoin and
Camel.
stocks
Just
and
whatever.
whatever.
Just whatever.
In other words, you've got your things. You know what I mean? But individually, we have to make sure that we're aware of situations and we do the best. We've said this before: do the best you can to weather the storm, because you ain't going to get out of the storm. It's heading your way, whether you like it or not.
So maybe there might not be a hedge against it, but who knows? I don't know.
Well, I think it's better to do something rather than do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to sit there and carry on buying TVs and cars and motorbikes and all that lot, then you're not protecting yourself in any way, shape, or form. But if you're putting it into a tier one asset or into stocks or Bitcoin or whatever you feel is the right way, at least you're doing something. You've got more chance than those people who are doing nothing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's, I mean, a lot of people don't save. Some people save in the bank. But if you save in assets and you're a bit sensible about it, then you can earn a lot more than if you just save in the bank or don't save at all.
Yeah.
So might as well, I reckon.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I do feel it comes with age. I mean, there are some young people, Andy, you've told me about your son, a young man who's doing very well, who learned from you and is doing the right thing at a very young age.
Yeah.
But in general, you find it's the older people who they've done their things in life and now they're sitting back and they're looking at the bigger picture of things, and they will make the moves to secure themselves a bit more, let's say. And if we can teach the younger generation to have a bit of that, all the better.
I tell you what, Gordy's doing really well. I was
Yeah.
speaking to Gordy, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday I was speaking to Gordy. And yeah, he saved a lot of money. He saved a lot of money via silver and gold.
Brilliant.
And he was sort of saying, yeah, like I've done this and I got this and blah blah blah. And I was like, wow, that didn't take long. So yeah, he's done really well.
And
And again, he's accelerated that by using assets as opposed to saving cash in the bank.
Well, this is it, and I can totally understand that, because when you start, you think, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and it builds so quickly that it changes the way you think about money. So, as I say, I was one of those people buying cars and motorbikes and all that lot, and I changed it onto gold and silver, and now I have no interest at all in those materialistic things, and I want to save. It's not even that I want to save, it's just I enjoy it and I feel like I'm not spending my money on rubbish. And it changes the whole way you think. It really, really does. And you'll be surprised at how exponentially your assets grow.
Yep. Yep. And it takes a little bit of time to build the base layer, but after that,
Yeah.
it speeds up quite surprisingly.
Yeah, for sure.
Scarily so. Scarily so.
Mm.
Interesting. Anything else you want to talk about the future of money?
I think we've covered quite a bit there, really, on that subject.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, you sound like you're going to go to sleep, Camel.
Me? Oh, stretching my back.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. It's really interesting. Is silver worth it?
For me,
yes and no.
That's the right answer. That's the right answer. Yeah.
But you can't. I'm not going to let you get away with that at all.
No, I'll give you my reasoning for that one. Yes, because it has potential. All right, there is definitely potential there, and so I've said it before. Depending on your finances, depends on how big your base stack of silver should be. But I believe you should have a base stack. And when I say a base stack, let's say you want 100 or 1,000 or 5,000 ounces or whatever you can afford. You should have that and just keep it. And that's what I intend to do. I'll set my, I'm going to pull out all my silver. I'm going to see what I've got. I'm going to set an amount that I want to have as a base stack. And remember, if you have 2,000 ounces and it goes up by £1, potentially it's gone up by £2,000 for you. If you have 2,000 ounces and it goes up by a fiver, potentially you've gained 10,000. But I think if I had the choice of continuing to grow an asset, so once I've got my base stack, would I carry on growing silver or would I carry on growing gold? For me, it would be gold. So that's why I say yes and no. Yes, you should have some, but it's not one that I would keep adding to after a certain amount that you are happy with.
I think it's good to have some. I think because you never know. So that's the first thing. For me, I kind of agree with what Cobra said to a large degree. But as a trader, I do think I could probably extract a fair bit of money from the silver market over the coming decades but I don't have to hold physical silver for that. I'll just be trying to trade the paper silver and stuff. So for me, it's definitely a trading tool. I'm not convinced it's anywhere as good as gold. I'm not convinced it's going to be easy for people to sell at the high numbers, if assuming we even get them. But I do think there's some good opportunity there. And I will always have a base layer of physical silver in my portfolio, I would think.
And would that be for both of you long term, or are you looking at having that base layer and if there's an opportunity getting out?
I think it's really sort of what's the opportunity. If it hits 40 for me, let's say at the moment in pounds, as we're in the UK, in pounds we're at about 24 at the moment. If it hit 40, would I want to sell at that? Probably not. If it hit 300, yeah, 100% it's gone. So it really depends on when it happens. And it's like you said, Andy, it's timing, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
it's all about timing and sort of saying to yourself, well, that's what I want out of it. And then it depends on what's happening in the world. How's the inflation? What's the cost of stuff? So if I cash it in and it's only going to give me enough to buy a loaf of bread, well, what's the point of that? I mean, that's an extreme, but you know what I mean. But if I cash it in and it's going to give me a high value that I can either reinvest in something which I feel is better, or I can use it for the benefit of mine and my family's life, then yeah, I'll cash it in. I'm not going to be, um, one of these people. I will never sell. Well, if you're never going to sell, what's the point of having it? It's just metal in your safe or wherever you're keeping it. I'll never say never in selling anything. I think I learned that with a few things over the last couple of years. Even with Bitcoin, I was in the beginning when I was sort of getting into it. I was like, yeah, yeah, I'm just going to hold this, going to hold this, going to hold this. It was a bit of fear that made me sell it, but I sold it, and I have a little bit now still. So yes, I would sell. But it depends on my circumstances and when and how it happens.
Camel?
I'll probably always keep some, I think.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I always keep some. And yeah, like I said earlier, I think I'll probably try and if we do get that expected spike to 50, 60-ish bucks towards the end of this year or early next year, I'll probably be looking to lighten up that position a bit. Um, but only because I see it coming straight back down again. Then yeah. And then, like I said, I'll probably switch to just trading it from there and I'll keep whatever base layer in the portfolio I've got thereafter, I think.
Interesting. So you're both of the opinion it's definitely worth getting a bit.
100%.
Yeah, and I also think it's worth focusing on that if you've got lower income or you're very new and haven't got any
Yeah,
assets.
yeah.
But equally, if you're really rich as well and you haven't got any silver, well, you can afford to buy like a good chunk, right? And just have it there. So I think there's a place in everyone's portfolio for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're absolutely right in what you said just now about if you're totally new into things and if you have a low income, silver is definitely a great entry point into saving and investing. And it will at least, if nothing else, put you in the mindset of doing that with other assets as well. So a lot of people start off with silver. They start slow because they haven't got the income to buy big amounts. And as they get into it and they enjoy it and they realize they're actually saving money, then they move into gold or whatever else. So 100%, I think it's a great entry point for anyone, young age, old age, lower money income or higher. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and it's less complex than trying to pick the right stocks as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I've got an
Which I'm still very weary at.
Yeah.
I've got an interesting observation, and I spoke to Cobra about it before you come on, Camel. All of a sudden, I've noticed within the community in the UK that more people are starting to talk about gold. Now, is there, do you see there being a danger that people that may have only just got into, based on that theory of what Cobra was talking about, it's good to get into the swing of things, into silver, get used to it, but I, would there be a possibility that without people really giving them time to educate themselves on that process, then they see what's happening to gold all of a sudden because it's price orientated, it's a headliner, they may all of a sudden just want to switch out of one to the other too quickly without learning?
I think for sure what's happened in the last 6 months to gold has made people rethink, and it can be dangerous in the way of if you've been in it for a few years, you'll always see the price of gold rise, and that's a great thing. Slowly but surely it creeps up. In the last 6 months, if you've just come into it, you've seen gold go up £500 an ounce roughly. And so people are going to be like, oh my God, look how quickly gold goes up. I want to buy loads of gold. So, yes, there's a danger of that. And then it will slow down or it will go back a little bit or it will hold for a fair few years or whatever. And then they'll be like, oh, what happened there? But I also think that gold, will go up year on year, pretty much. You can say it'll go up 7 to 10%. And so therefore it's never going to be a bad asset to hold. But I think, yeah, there is going to be a thing of people switching out. I mean, I'm switching out, but I've always had a love for gold anyway, and I'm not totally switching out. Um, so yes, there's a danger of people who are new into the game coming in, seeing what's happening in the last few months, and thinking I have to put everything I've got into gold. But in the same token, it is a solid asset. It just may not raise as much as they want it to after a certain while.
Camel?
Hello?
Yeah, that price definitely drives eyes, right? When things pump, gets people's attention. When people make money, they tell their friends. That's another thing, right? Oh, I
Yeah.
bought gold and it went up $200. Yeah. Uh, so yeah, there's that. I am noticing from a charting perspective, we're getting a little frothy. We're getting a little long in the tooth, meaning I do expect a little bit of a correction soon. And people may or may not care about that. But overall, the thing is in an uptrend, and the more it goes higher, the more people are going to become aware of that. And that's just the nature of the beast, I think.
So, so if that's the
Oh,
case, do you
I also,
sorry, go on, mate.
sorry, I also thought that the whole inflation thing has forced people to look for alternatives and question life a little bit, right? They could get away with 2% annual inflation, but when it went to 22% in a year in the UK, I think it led a lot of people to look around and go, "Well, what have I got to do to protect myself from this?"
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination of those two things.
I don't know what I was going to say now.
Oh, sorry, mate.
That's okay. It's fine. It's called old age. I should have written it down. I think I was going to say something along the lines of, I have no idea. Oh, friggin' hell. I don't know. I really don't
The
know.
What podcast, guys?
Yeah, it's always on the cuff. Okay, so yeah, silver. There's something for it still. It's a good educational way of getting into the marketplace to go on a journey to understand more about everything about money. Gold obviously is. Would you say a very similar product, but obviously it's priced differently, but it has more historical value and it's used in a different way, and probably got a better potential, which leaves Bitcoin. What do you reckon on Bitcoin now? We're a little bit further down the line. It hasn't gone away, still out there. Camel, I'll let you answer that one first, really.
I
What's your
don't know.
viewpoints? What's your viewpoints on Bitcoin now?
I mean, under the hood, it doesn't care. It's the same thing. Bitcoin doesn't care about anything.
Yeah.
Doesn't care who gets elected in November. It doesn't care what people think of it. doesn't care that institutions are buying it. Bitcoin does not care. It TikTok next block, and it will keep doing that until it doesn't, which hopefully won't be anytime soon. So yeah, that's Bitcoin under the hood. Um, in terms of like what's it gonna do in terms of price, I would think we're probably going to see this thing squeeze a lot higher in the not too distant future, and then I think it's going to get pretty rough for Bitcoin for a while. That's been the base case. Seems to be playing out at long last. And then, like on a more global stage, there does seem to be an ever increasing adoption. It seems to be more and more institutional interest and big boys stepping into it. And ultimately, it works, right? I think that's the thing that's overlooked the most about it is it's worked and it has continued to work. And there's not really much you can criticize about it. There's not really a coherent, excuse me, a coherent argument against it. There's plenty of people that say, well, what about this or what about that? But the answer to all of those questions is study more, and it becomes incredibly difficult to actually critique it. So, so yeah, I mean, Bitcoin's doing Bitcoin things. It's going to keep doing that, and I think it's probably not going anywhere anytime soon. To be honest, I do think it's probably going to get quite volatile. But then again, that is one of the features of Bitcoin.
Yeah, forgetting price, do you still think it potentially could play a part in the future?
Yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. Whether the governments choose to embrace it and use it as part of a, backing fiat by Bitcoin or something,
Mhm.
that's highly speculative. And I've always had my doubts about that. I've always said that would be really nice for the Bitcoin holders, but I have my doubts about that because they're probably going to want something they have more control over or more ability to influence, I would think.
I was going to say something similar on that one. For me, Bitcoin's taken a different thing. I respect Bitcoin. I looked into it in the beginning when Andy first talked to me about it, and I like the way it's made, and I understand how secure it is in certain ways for the people, let's say, and for peer-to-peer trading. Um, I also have looked at it, and I watched a lot of your stuff, Camel, over the months, and I think it's like stocks for me in the way of, look, you've got no guarantee of nothing with it. You really haven't. The only guarantee you've got is it's there, and it'll probably be there for a very long time. As far as governments adopting it, I don't think they will. And my only reason for saying it, and I'm not as educated as you are, either of you are on this, but just the way I see it, is governments will have no control over it. And if they haven't got control over it, they're not interested. If they wanted to, they could have used that as a CBDC. They had no interest in doing that. Each country will form their own CBDC, and that will be what they run with. So for me, Bitcoin, yeah, have a little bit in it. And again, this is not advice because I'm not educated enough in this, but it's not. So I prefer gold. I've always said it. I prefer gold myself. Bitcoin's okay, but we've got to a certain point, and then we're saying, well, it could rip a bit higher, and then we'll see it drop, and we'll see volatile times for it, and all that lot. Whereas gold may not rip as much as Bitcoin will in any one year or session or whatever, but it's consistent, and that's why I prefer gold. So Bitcoin for me, yeah, it's a little thing to have a bit in there, and you never know, it could become very useful and very good. And I may be wrong, and whatever I've got in there will benefit me in that way. But it's not something I would put a large sum of money into personally.
Cool. Camel?
What about you, CPM?
What's that, mate?
What about you?
What about me? What?
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. You know my views on Bitcoin. I still buy my little bit every morning. Um, okay, this is the way I view it. I cannot ignore personally that we are forever edging into a technical digital world. And it was really interesting. When I was on holiday, I was thinking about this a lot. I ain't going to bore you, but I talked to a lot of people in Mauritius while I was out there, and the locals, and they were telling me how their economy has changed so much in 10 years, just 10 years. And I did quite a bit of writing, and I'm going to put a blog on there on the podcast when I sort it out properly. But my view is I definitely from a learning curve, I appreciate what gold's done, what it stood for sure. I've seen the ups and well, I haven't seen the ups and downs, but I've read about the ups and downs with money since 71, pre 71. I'm no expert, but I've got a fairly good basic understanding of what's going on. But I've also been very aware that the digital age is increasing so quickly. And at the back of my mind, I cannot think, I cannot, sorry, um, I can't put out the back of my mind that as we go into a more digital setup, maybe in my lifetime, I'm 60 now, I might see it over, if I'm lucky enough to get to 80, maybe in my lifetime I might see a big radical change in that. But definitely I'm thinking of my children and my grandchildren. I can't believe that there won't be some sort of, without all the fear mongering of crashes and losing the internet and all that stuff, if things just keep progressing and going, and hopefully mankind will let that progress and go, then some sort of digital form of asset somehow will be there in the future as a good store of value. Whether that can be money as well, I have no idea. I don't think I'll see that in my timeline. So for me, I can't just rule out the physicality of holding my wealth. And you all know I like my silver and gold. Thankfully, Bitcoin led me to that, and I'm really pleased about that. But it wasn't Bitcoin that actually led me to it. It was the educational route of learning about money. And I just see that there's got to be potential in a digital way somehow, that being that Bitcoin is just, I see it as a truer, better way than the physical aspect of gold. But I like the physical aspect of gold, obviously. You've only got to look at my holdings. In the future, it's got to play a part. I'm not saying it will play a part, but I think it's got a great potential of playing a part if all the right things come together. So I'm very, very happy that I've still got it as part of my portfolio. Maybe I might not see the massive benefit for myself personally out of that, but hopefully I can really definitely see my grandchildren for sure being in that sort of world. So I'm kind of pleased that I can have that and maybe pass it on, and if it's not of great value to me in this day and age, maybe the gold will be down the line, that something like Bitcoin will be. Hopefully, that's my view anyway. I think it's too strong. I think we're moving into this digital age, regardless of whether we like it or don't like it. I've had 60 years without it. Well, not 60 years without it, but a good 40 years without it. And that sets a bit of a bias to me, but I'm trying not to think from my own point of view anymore. I'm going like a Dalek, sorry. um, I'm trying to look at it from my children and my grandchildren's point of view. And it'd be kind of nice to have something today at the early stage of development, and, to pass on, hopefully as a potential if it does something. That's my view anyway.
Fair enough.
And you two are both gone to sleep.
No, no, I'm here.
No, I'm still good.
What do you reckon on that?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I agree. We are going into a digital age, but I also think that governments will control that. And so a thing like Bitcoin, which was made for the people, may not have as much influence, let's say, as we hope it would.
Yeah, I don't even know what that influence is, though, Cobra, to be fair. And I'm not even sure whether the governments of the future would want it to control it, not want to control it.
Exactly.
That doesn't enter my brain too much. It's the potential that it could be
Yeah.
used by somebody, whether that's governments, whether that's elitism, whether it's a one world fucking, excuse my language, one world government, whether it's just peer to peer.
And agree,
If it
I
goes
do
that way,
agree. Yeah, I do agree in some ways because, we still see the big financial institutions, BlackRock and all that, like JP Morgan, buying so much of it. So again, I think we had this conversation before. Well, if they're buying so much of it, there's a reason. They're not stupid and they don't buy stuff that ain't going to do anything. So
Yeah,
yeah, I agree. I agree. There is scope in there for it without a doubt. And I do
yeah.
like Bitcoin for what it is. So
what it stands for. Yeah, it's the thing is, I suppose it's been made out to be the people power stuff.
Yeah,
But we always know that, probably once upon a time gold was, or shells was, or beads were, or,
yeah,
the powers to be, or whatever the way we evolve as a global community, change things. They change it, whether we like it or not. And I kind of like to think that whether that's going to be used in a good way, bad way, hopefully it will have value, and it'll be something that maybe, just like gold, silver, and all the other bits I do, that my grandchildren would say, "Oh, thank God, Granddad did that.
yeah,
Thank
yeah,
God." Rather than I've been in such a position, when I look back and think, "Oh, bloody hell, that was pretty obvious. Why didn't my parents do that, or why didn't my grandparents do that?" It's one of those. It's one of those,
yeah,
and
for
I'd rather
sure.
have my fingers in a little bit of it than anything else. But I won't compromise, obviously, my standard of living today. It's all about, balance more than anything, and speculating.
Yeah,
But so many
agreed.
people write everything off. They just think, what are you doing? It's weird.
Mm.
I find it very strange, but that's the beauty of being humans. Sorry. Have I,
No, no,
have
no
I,
apologies.
have I,
Absolutely right. It was a
have
good
I,
point.
have I dragged the conversation down?
No, 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 not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. It's a
Cool.
good point.
It's just I don't know. I think the old one. I know a lot of people don't like. Oh, fucking hell, an old bastard talking again. But the older I've got, and we've had this conversation to a degree, Cobra. The older you get, you just start to look at things so differently,
Absolutely agree.
so differently, and stuff that I think about today, I would never have thought about in my
Yeah,
20s, 30s, 40s. I just wouldn't, and I think it's just that natural thing. And I'm just personally, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal or anything, I'm just personally pleased that I'm not just thinking of me today and getting the best out of what I fucking want today. I'm thinking about my family, I'm thinking about my grandchildren, I'm thinking about their children, and, trying, if I can, possibly, I don't know whether I can or not, just trying to put something together for them more than anything,
yeah, yeah,
and trying to transfer that into a way of thinking for other people, but that's up to them.
for sure. Yeah,
Boring,
totally agree.
boring,
No, no, no,
boring
no,
old
no,
man
bruv,
stuff.
don't even say that. No, it's true. It's true. Our views change. And I said that earlier. The older you get, the more your views change.
You do.
For sure.
Yeah, 100% do. And I noticed it in Mauritius, funny enough, talking to older generational people, and, younger people. And they're talking about stuff over a shorter period of time, that they're seeing their poor little island change economically in such a short period of time that we've seen happen in 40, 50, 60, 70 years. And that acceleration is happening now. And then I sit there and think, oh shit, if that can happen to an economy in our planet, over a short period of time, what's our next 5 years going to be like? What's our next 10
Yeah,
years going
yeah.
to be like at this bigger economy? And it's things like that that make you just sit there and think, shit, bloody hell, how things are changing so fast, and without and this is another believer, and again, it's an old shitty man talking, because I've had the privilege of seeing prehistoric phone systems, to
Yeah.
no internet and all that bollocks that most people don't want to fucking listen to, but it's true, to now, and I've got a time period to compare it to, and then see how quick things are changing now. It's not the iPhone changes every year. You can fucking car registration changes twice a year. It's not like everything's changing so quick, so quick, so quick, so quick, so quick, and
It speeds up as well.
yeah, and you miss it. You can miss it if you've got nothing. If you're a part of it, and like my children are a part of it, and my grandsons are part of it, he doesn't know any different. Absolutely, and you can't sit back and reflect and think, whoa, wow, Jesus. That has changed really quickly. That's that and then you convert that into how you see the financial system changing. It's scary. It's a little bit scary. And you have to just, Cam always says, you know, you have to sometimes try and sit back out of it. But it's so difficult when you're flying around on that hamster wheel like there's no tomorrow, trying to do whatever you can do.
This is why with age our attitudes change, because we start coming off that hamster wheel.
Yeah.
We start slowing down on that and we start looking at other things.
Yeah.
And though you say the kids of today, they won't see it because it's changing so quick, but when they reach our age, they'll be
Yeah.
able to say, well, I remember when there was the internet and we had VR glasses,
Yeah.
VR goggles, and
Yeah.
now look at it, you know,
Yeah.
we're flying around in
Yeah.
little cars, you know, whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great little article, Roger, getting back to Bitcoin. You know, it's like, what, you know, in 30, 40 years' time, if my grandson says to his kids, and his kids, you know, they say, well, why didn't Granddad invest in this fucking outrageously whatever system there is out there, if it's worked? Why didn't Granddad get involved with that? Why did he put all that time into this or that, or save that or save this, you know? It's interesting. You never know. You never know, but you have your finger in that little pie here and there around what you can afford.
Yeah.
But you've got to be aware of it. You've got to be aware of it. So I seem to have put a down on this conversation. Everyone's
Not
got
at all, bro. You
quiet.
keep saying that.
No,
Yeah.
why'd you keep saying it?
Yeah.
It's
Stop
just because
saying that.
I don't know.
You're putting your point across, which is absolutely fine.
Yeah, yeah. But that's the way I feel about it, Camel. I like to have. It just makes sense if you actually do. If one of my biggest things as well is I try really hard to take my way from the pound and look at it in a different way. I try to devalue all my assets and just look at, are they good assets, not what they're worth. Because if I'm looking at it for what they're worth, I'm looking at it for what I want now, not what I want from investing my time and energy into the asset. And I think a lot of the conversations I have and a lot of conversations I listen to, it's always about today. It's always about what they worth, what you're worth. Oh, it ain't worth it. Oh, I remember losing money in that. Or I remember gaining money in that. And I'm thinking, just hold on a minute. Do you know anything about the technology behind it? Or why it's there? Or how potentially it could be of use to a community? You know, but I think a lot of us are stuck in that. What's it worth? What's it worth? What do I get out of it? You know, and a lot of things we do in life, you know, which is conditioning, what we've been conditioned to, right from school. Started writing about it. It's really interesting. Hamster wheel mentality. And I think we can miss a trick if we're not careful. If we just look at it as just what's it worth, because you've got to value it in what it's worth. And here it's always about the pound, or in America it's always about the dollar. It's China, it's always about the yen, you know, or whatever, yuan. It's really
Again,
interesting.
that's
We get
age,
blindsided.
brother.
Sorry?
Again, that's age.
It is,
So,
yeah.
you know, when
100%.
you're on that hamster wheel and suddenly you need some money and all that, like, you've got to look at what you've got and what it's worth. As you get older, and like you said, you're thinking about your family for the future,
Yeah.
then you don't so much look at it as what it's worth. It's, is it a good asset? Am I holding the right asset?
Yeah.
And how will it do in the future for my kids or my grandchildren?
Has it
So,
got value?
you know,
Yeah.
it changes. It changes with time,
Yeah.
the way you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come
There
on,
you
Carol,
go.
you've got a younger aspect on it all.
He's got a younger ass.
Yeah, younger ass.
Easy.
Easy.
I don't know. I feel really old. I do feel old.
Do you? Well,
yeah.
just talking to me in Cobra.
No. I don't know really. I've always been quite long-term thinking compared to, like, even going back to when I was quite young. I mean, I figured out that you know my story, right? Got a degree, got a job, and then very quickly was like, nah, this is not right. Something's wrong here. I feel like I've been scammed. And so, because I've been investing for a long time, or a big chunk of my adult life, I kind of share your views on that. And I've always, because I come from a poor background, I've always had this kind of long-term picture of, even though I don't have kids, like I've got to figure this out and make sure my family are okay.
Yeah.
So I very much share a lot of what you said because I've been a long-term thinker for a long time, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think the Bitcoin stuff probably comes a little bit more intuitively.
Yeah.
And technology, that kind of thing, probably. I assume the younger you are, the easier that stuff comes, the
For
more
sure.
second nature that stuff is.
Definitely.
For sure.
Yeah.
But then again, I was late to it because somebody showed me it in 2014 or 2015, maybe.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So that was a mistake. But yeah, generally speaking, I think you're absolutely right. You want to hold quality. You want to be able to leave something behind, right? Take care of your family. If you've got kids, kids. If not, everyone else.
Yeah.
And quality. I really love what you said about not valuing it in a debasing currency
Yeah.
or words to that effect.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me, rather than looking at the price now. It's like,
Yeah.
think about what it is and what it serves to do and what it has potential to do in the future.
I
So
don't,
yeah, I largely agree with what you said.
yeah, and it's just not Bitcoin. You know, you can look at that as gold. I'm a great advocate of gold personally. A great advocate of silver. A great advocate of certain technology stocks. You know, property. If you know, property does your thing. All those sort of things. It's just, I don't know. I probably get a little bit frustrated when people just go on about price all the time. You know, I get it. I know why they do it. Because that's the driver. That's what we've all been brought up to do. But sometimes it's good just to look at an asset just for what it is. You know, if you'd looked at oil for what it truly was back in the day, probably would have had the same thought. Oh, how much is it worth? Oh, it's worth fuck all. 100 years later or so, it's made some, you know, a massive industry, hasn't it? So yeah, sometimes you have to look at the potential of what something can do for humanity. Good, bad, ugly, whatever. It's all going to get abused, probably. But you just want to be, quote, on the right side of the trade. Who says that? Camel. Exactly. Exactly. No, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. Cool beans. Anyone want to talk about anything else?
I still know that Camel has to raise a subject for one of our podcasts.
Dude, I texted him the other day and I said, what do you want to talk about? And he said, well, I picked the subjects. And I said, yeah, that was a get out. That wasn't
That
really.
wasn't it.
And,
Yeah.
so, yeah, we think he should pick something.
Yeah, we haven't forgotten Camel.
I've got one if you're interested.
Go on.
You might need to do a bit of research on it. I think I do as well. But I think I want you to look into the dead internet theory.
Are you sitting on the other side of the house?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The dead internet theory.
Yep.
Okay. I have no idea what that is, but I will look into it.
Do you want me to give you a brief outline?
Yeah, I'd like you to get closer to the mic though.
All right, how's that?
That's
Much
brilliant.
better.
A brief outline would be that.
Can you just bear with me 1 second, guys?
Yep.
Just got to let the cat out.
How does he do that in the middle of a podcast? He's got to let the cat out. Both of you are running away from the mic. I'm the only one here.
Yeah.
So,
you are,
guys, this is the What podcast.
I'm kind of like half smoking a cigarette out the door. That's all.
I'm
on,
lucky I can sit here and do that.
Go on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go on. Go on then.
All right, so I'm back. So the dead internet theory, and my understanding is somewhat limited, so I haven't spent a great deal of time on this, but it's essentially that, and there's two sides to this. There's like a more conspiracy type side, which is that the government is doing this, and then there's just the other side of it, which is it's more of a natural evolution of just how AI is progressing. But the dead internet theory essentially says that a great deal of the internet now, and an ever increasing amount of it, is populated by bots, and they're designed to either push a narrative that may or may not be motivated by government, or maybe it's just a natural evolution of AI. But the idea of it is that there's so many bots and there's so much algorithmic choosing of what we get to see that they are using it, or it is being used to manipulate how we see the internet. And thus, when we Google things, we're not getting the things we're supposed to get back. And a great deal of what we are interacting with online is AI generated or bots, and therefore a lot of what the internet we're seeing, the internet is no longer what it used to be, which is it used to be a very easy way to access information, unbiased information, and nowadays it's much harder to do that. And there may well be a nefarious component to this where, like I said, there may well be some kind of deliberate push to skew people's opinions and narratives.
Very interesting. I'll have to have a look into that before I comment. I mean, there's definitely a load of bots, and we're definitely influenced by things the internet wants to show us. But yeah, I will look deeper into that for sure.
It's an amazing subject because the offshoots of that, just from what Camel said, are so interact with a lot of the conversations we have anyway.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And it's really funny because obviously I've spent being an old git. I've spent a lot of time trying to interact at a internet level, with me, with my YouTube channels and this, and so much time observing, trying to make myself almost force myself to learn in a different way and trust using the internet more and more and more. But my old cynical mind really struggles with it because I'm losing physicality of the world. And if I'm losing physicality world, and a lot of that is built on trust when you meet people physically, and with what you was just talking about, I can just see, Jesus, what do you believe in? In this world, this screen world, what do you believe in? Is it open to manipulation? And you just go down that rabbit hole and you just think, shit, we're fucked. Because
it's
nothing that you're absorbing you can trust anymore.
Yeah,
you just can't trust it, which is why
but that's
I like
everywhere. That's in the news. That's everything. We just don't know anymore. And even to AI generated photography and films and
Yep.
everything, you just don't know anymore. So yeah, that would be a very interesting one for sure.
If you somewhere that might be worth starting, and for anyone that's interested, anyone that's listening that might be interested, if you type in Destiny's Schizo Arc ARC into YouTube, there's a 12-minute video which has had all the highlights edited and put into a 12-minute video, and then there's underneath that on YouTube there's an hour and a half full-length stream that he did where he was doing some digging, and the amount of bots and AI generated clips and all this weird stuff that he pulls up was really quite mind blowing. So if anyone wants to check that out, type in Destiny's Schizo Arc into YouTube and have a look there.
Arc or art?
Arc, A-R-C.
Yeah, arc, okay.
Cool. Well, that's one subject then for the future. Another one which I would suggest we talk about, maybe Andy, you can write these down.
I am.
Would be, are we living in a simulated world?
Oh yeah.
That would be a brilliant one.
Simulated
there you go.
World. Are we living in a simulated world? Cool.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm enjoying. This is part and parcel. Getting back onto that last one. This is why I'm part and parcel of sort of wanted to get the podcast going more now, because it's. I don't know about you guys, but if you can have an actual conversation with somebody, you can judge. You can judge the conversation better and observe the conversation better than just via typing an answer. And I don't know whether that's old school. I don't know, Camel, do you struggle with that? Do you think you could just have weeks of just hardly having any conversation and just, I don't know, interacting on, through comments on your channel and just typey all the time?
Well, I'm not allowed to see my wife.
No. Obviously.
What?
You can see your wife and dog.
Oh yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
I think the only thing I'd say about that is, look, even when we text people, it's open to interpretation.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think a conversation, you can hear the mood, what's being said, you can hear a lot of it, where a text or a message on a computer is never putting across something in the same way. So I think we're losing the art of conversation, unfortunately. There are lots of people out there who do, but we lose the art of conversation and we actually lose the integrity of what's being said by just messages.
Something I notice a lot in my YouTube comments
Yep.
is I read a comment and perceive it as someone being shirty.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then it turns out that they're from somewhere else in the world.
Yep.
yeah.
And so I'm always like,
Cultural
I'm not sure
differences.
what you mean or whatever. And it turns out it's actually a language barrier,
Yep.
Yeah.
or they're not, they're not, English isn't their first language. So maybe they type more directly or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, conversation is definitely underrated.
Yep. And
But if the question is, am I happy chilling out with my dog and my wife? Then yeah, I am.
yeah. No, that wasn't the question.
Oh, okay.
The question was spending more of your time interacting on the internet as a rule.
Oh no,
where,
no,
where
no.
you're,
I think
where you're not having conversation.
oh, I think I misunderstood what you said. No, I've never been a big fan of that anyway.
Yeah.
And before Camel, I had no social media or any of that stuff. I've never been a fan of hanging out in chat rooms or
Yeah.
anything like that. I still to this day don't get on with Discord very well.
No, I'd struggle with it. I
Yeah, I
think
do.
I think the only reason why I really like the Discord that I'm in with Stackers Social, and they all know this, is that they've given me that facility to have a chat, which I use quite a bit. I can't just do the texting thing. I'm reading comments. I like to have a conversation, and I'm trying to promote that more in there, and it's working, which is good.
Good.
Which is really cool indeed. Oh wow, fascinating. Look forward to the next one for sure.
Yeah.
Are we
Yeah.
going? Are we going back to our old 2 week? So many people have sent me a message to say, "Oh, where you been? Glad you're back." I'd like to mention we have a membership available on this the podcast now. Did you know that?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes. So
Okay, so everyone join up.
people can support it. It's $1.99 a month. Very low amount of money. But if you can support it, it'd be really appreciated. I'm going to convert all that money into Bitcoin and let that grow and help me build the podcast in the background. If I'd say I'm going to let all that money know, I'm the only one that's a member.
I'll join.
Oh, thank you so much. But yes, membership's available and it's very basic. It's just a supportive thing. As we grow, hopefully we can change it. But I want to do more lives, and all the lives, I'm going to mention all the members when we do a live and say thank you initially. So yeah, that would be great from a support point of view. If you
And
can,
guys, please do support, because I know another thing myself and Andy were talking about. We're doing meeting up with certain people and having a live type of discussion with them. So the debates that you see on YouTube and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
all over the place with people like Charlie Kirk and all that, and building this into something like that. But that takes money, so any support will be much appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. Any support and sponsorship from Camel Finance would be wonderful. He's gone very quiet.
We'll see. No, I'm here.
We'll see. Are we going to get back into our two weekly
Yes.
chats?
I am. I'm happy to.
Yeah,
good?
me too.
Hey, that's good, because I think a lot of people would like that again.
Do you want to do both of those subjects for next fortnight?
No, one each. One on
One
one
each.
week, one on another, because I think they're two very deep subjects.
Okay.
Yeah, and the offspin from them will just grow. We'll probably get subcategories to talk about anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
For sure. Are you guys interested in doing? Did you Camel? I'm not Kobe. You wasn't on it, was you? Or was you on it when we did the down the pub thing? A chill out type thing. Did
No,
you enjoy that,
unfortunately.
Camel?
Oh, I loved that. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to promote that as well and get that going again, because that was more of a chill out, just to chat about anything, wasn't it? and it worked. I think we had 4 of us in there or 5 of us in there at one point.
Yeah, I think there's 5.
Yeah, and that worked, Cobra. So that was
Yeah.
good.
I
Good
think
thing.
I did it. I think I did pop in. I don't think I was there all the way through.
Oh, you did pop
Uh,
in. You popped in later, didn't you?
Yeah, I
yes,
was going to say,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to push that. Obviously, if anybody listening to this would like to come on, have a one-on-one or some other type of setup, please just approach the channel. CPM 100 423 at gmail.com, because I am very interested in getting a complete diversified view of the world out there, because I find that very educational for myself, and I've got so many places I want to go. For sure. Thank you very much, guys. I've really enjoyed this.
Great stuff. Thank you, brother. And Camel, thank you.
And I
Yeah,
hope,
thanks for having me, and nice to speak with you again, Cobra.
Cobra.
CPM's gone. So, yeah. I said thank you, and then he replied by saying thank you. So.
Oh right, sorry. Yeah, it was just the way he said it. I was thinking he was going to get a reply. That was all. Yeah, great guys. Thank you very much, and I'll see you all again very soon.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.